When your gut feels off, your whole day can feel off. Activia probiotic yogurts and dailies are a quick, easy, and tasty way to up your gut health game every day. They're deliciously smooth and creamy and packed with billions of live and active probiotics. Your gut is where it all begins, so start with Activia. Enjoying Activia twice a day for 2 weeks as part of a balanced diet and healthy lifestyle can help reduce the frequency of minor digestive discomfort.
People freak out when little kids swear. And they think like, that's, oh my gosh, she's being naughty and she's swearing. They're doing it because they're mimicking us and because they like the reaction that they get. And they're also playing around with sounds and words. And if you say the F word, boy, does that get a response. So this is all within the realm of normal, him throwing food. Him being so uncomfortable with messes and needing to wash his hands all the time, I wouldn't put that in the category of normal. I wouldn't say he has OCD, but I would say you need to pay attention to turning that pattern around.
Welcome to Season 7 of Flusterclux with Lynn Lyons, where we'll talk about managing anxiety and all the other emotions too. We tackle the serious stuff without being too serious. I'm your co-host Robin, I'm Lynn's sister-in-law, and I'm here to ask your questions.
And I'm Lynn Lyons. I'm an anxiety expert, speaker, mom, and author. I've been a therapist for 35 years. Parenting can be a flusterclux, and I'm here to help you find your way. I'll tell you what to do and what to say.
Hey, Lynn.
Hey, Robin.
We have a listener question I would like to read to you.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay, so this is especially for the parents of young kids out there.
All right.
I know my kid is a bit young. I honestly listen to this podcast for myself as a parent, but I have a question I wanted to ask. My son is 2 years old, and we've always involved him in chores and cleaning up. We want him to feel capable and be a part of the family and have consequences for making unnecessary messes, like throwing food, which I know is totally normal 2-year-old behavior. We are always super chill about it, singing songs, dancing, and accepting that it takes 3 times as long to do anything. But we're starting to notice that he will get upset if something is messy and we can't drop everything we're doing to clean it right away. He doesn't like his hands being dirty and is always asking to wash his hands. My family thinks we're giving him OCD. I was just curious as to how normal this behavior is at 2. I thought it was just a combination of liking the consistency routine of cleaning and that the hands thing is just about a sensory aspect. He's a really social kid for his age, and I'm not worried about his development. Lynn, do you have any suggestions for how we should handle his cleaning demands?
Yes, I do. Okay, so this is such a good question. There are a few things that jump out at me. One thing is she said her child is young. That's true, but she's listening to this podcast for myself as a parent. Yeah, because that's what the podcast is for. So it's great that you're listening to it when your child is young, because prevention is a wonderful thing. And it's really good to be thinking about these things and to be recognizing patterns that are showing up. So that's great. Here's what I have to say about this. So, and I'm saying this without shame and without blame, but I'm going to be pretty straightforward about it. 2-year-olds throw food. 2-year-olds actually still poop in their pants. I mean, these are babies. A 2-year-old is a baby. So when you're saying that you want him to feel capable, that's terrific. You want him to include things. But here's what grabbed me, Mom, when you said consequences for making unnecessary messes. So being able to differentiate at 2, what's a necessary versus unnecessary mess is just not possible. So in terms of understanding development, 2-year-olds don't have an idea about necessary or unnecessary messes. The way they learn that is what we model, and we have them put away their toys maybe, or that kind of stuff. But when you're 2 years old and you're throwing food, and then there's a consequence to that, that makes me kind of go, Bob, he's 2. He's a baby. He's still putting green beans up his nose if given the opportunity. Okay, so that's one thing that caught my attention. The other thing that caught my attention is that your family says you're giving him OCD. Now I don't know that you're giving him OCD, but that's an interesting thing for a family to observe and to say. because they are watching the way that you're handling his messes, and they're watching the way that he is responding when his hands are dirty, when he wants to have them cleaned, and he wants to have it right away. And that's getting their attention such that they're going like, hey, maybe they're saying it nicely, and maybe they're saying it jokingly, or maybe they're saying it really seriously. But that's another thing that got my attention. He wants you to drop everything you're doing and clean his hands right away. So it may be a sensory thing for sure, but even if it's a sensory thing, this is a pattern that you want to pay attention to and that you really want to look and see, are you doing anything that is giving him the idea or that is supporting a risk factor, because perhaps he does have some sensory issues, or maybe there is OCD in your family, that you are doing things that are supporting the development of a risk factor, which is often a way to think about this. It's sort of like when we were talking to Jessica Leahy about substance use. If you have alcoholism in your family and you are letting your child have sips of wine when they're 13 and 14, you are supporting a risk factor. So you really want to pay attention to this. I would back off, really back off, on consequences for unnecessary messes. The consequence, the natural consequence, if there even is a consequence, is that you can make a joke about it cleaning up, but it is not his job at this point at 2 to make that connection between cause and effect. And I just have to wonder, are you, and this is a question, and you may say, no, we're absolutely not doing that, Lynn, but I just want you to ask yourself, are you valuing cleanliness? Are you reacting and responding to his messes in a way that is showing him that it's really important that he be clean?
Can I just say this in a direct mom-to-mom way?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Because this is the language that you also talk about when you talk about patterns and rigidity. But I would ask you, if you were one of my besties, do you want things a certain way or do you need things a certain way? And what are you modeling for your son? That he needs things a certain way.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's exactly right. Because what you're picking up on in this question, Robin, is the urgency that he is feeling. So mom is saying we make it fun, we have games, we play.
But she has to be honest with herself that there's an urgency to the order she's trying to keep.
Right.
That would be my guess. And I totally admire people who have the energy to keep things clean. But you did an episode, I feel like this was in our first season, where it ended with you talking about the messes and the importance of mess, which is counterintuitive in a way, but it ended with you using an example of like one of the most extreme messes that you had when your boys were little in the house. And I remember thinking, dear God, but it made a point.
Well, do you remember what the mess was? Did they dump the 20-pound bag of cat food onto our sun porch and then use that as dirt with their construction vehicles? Because that was a heck of a mess.
I know, but see, in your family, you're like, which big historic mess was this?
Was it when one of them covered the other one's entire head in Eucerin cream? Was it that mess? Because that was a good mess too. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of messes. And I think the thing that we have to just recognize is that messes, what some people call messes, are really the way that our kids are figuring out their world in a sensory way. So, go to a preschool, go to a really wonderful Montessori school, and they have the soap table where they play with bubbles. They have the sand table. They have the slime table. They're going outside. I saw this wonderful video on some social media recently where these little kids in Denmark were lining up so they could all jump in the mud puddle. Oh, and it may have been the mess too, where I took my kids to the park and that parking lot was dirt. It's paved now, but it was dirt. And they were sitting in the puddles in the parking lot and they were just covered in mud. And so I took all their clothes off and put them in the car naked. And this mom was appalled. She was sort of appalled and amazed. Like she was like, she didn't know she could do that. And she was sort of like, oh my God, I can't believe.
That was me.
Yeah,
that was me.
Right. I can't believe you let your kids get so dirty. And I said to her, oh, mine are washable. Are yours not washable? That's what I said. Yeah. So So allowing these sensory things to happen. And remember that when toddlers are doing things, they're not doing things to be naughty. They're not doing things to be disruptive. They're not even doing things to be messy. They don't even know the difference, right? They're doing things to just see how the world responds. So they throw things because it's fun for them to have a reaction. And so that's why kids, you're sitting with little kids and they will throw something, you pick it up. They will throw something, you pick it up. It's sort of like the same mentality of a border collie. I had a friend actually who had a husky and a baby, and he was charting the cognitive development of his baby as it related to his husky. And he determined that when the baby was about 2.5 years old, the husky and the baby were fairly cognitively similar. These are games that they're playing. And that's why the word consequence just jumped out at me. I think, Robin, you make such a good point that if it is the mom's urgency, if it's her language of saying, oh, you're dirty, don't throw things, we need to go wash your hands right now. Even if she's saying it in a happy, playful voice, if there is a very immediate step from I'm messy to I need to get clean, this little boy is not having a lot of opportunity. I mean, look, they take their diapers off in their crib and they rub their poop on the wall. I mean, this is like a normal thing that kids do. If you are noticing that your child is uncomfortable with being messy, uncomfortable with having things on his hands, let's just assume right now for a moment that this mom is not modeling that there's not an urgency. Let's give her the hugest benefit of the doubt that she's like, no, I'm totally fine with mess. I just wash his hands when he's dirty. You still want to pay attention because he is somewhere, somehow getting the message that this is uncomfortable on his hands. And I would look for opportunities to be in the mess. This is a kid who I would put him next to the kitchen sink on a chair with a whole bunch of messy things. I would maybe even make some mashed potatoes and have him be able to put his hands and squeeze the mashed potatoes. I would give him opportunities to finger paint. I would give him shaving cream. I would play a game with him in the bathtub where you take shaving cream and put it all over his face and put it all over your face. You've got to turn this around so that he understands that being dirty or messy or having things on his hands, because it might not even be dirty or messy, is really okay. You've got to continue to make it playful. But I am worried that the connection between I'm messy and, oh, let's go wash your hands, or don't throw your food, is giving him the message that it's better to be clean than messy. And he is getting increasingly uncomfortable with the messiness because, and again, I don't know this, because somebody in your house is also uncomfortable with the messes.
We'll take a break and be right back.
Okay.
Maybe gift giving isn't your love language. You overthink it and you wind up with something disappointing, or worse, nothing at all. Okay, I've got the perfect gift for you. Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. Upload thousands of photos with your phone. Watch them appear in seconds. It's so easy to use. Setup takes about 60 seconds. There are 2 sizes to choose from. The original is 10 inches, and then there's a larger 15-inch gallery frame, and they can stand on their own, or you can hang them. And maybe for those of you who don't like sharing photos of your kids on social media, this is a nice private way to keep families connected of all those special moments that you capture with your camera. I gotta be honest with you though. So if you've got teens and tweens, the photos can be very, very creative. We're confident that you'll love Skylight. They offer a free 120-day return. It's a top-rated brand with over 1 million happy customers, thousands of 5-star reviews, and it's available in over 30 countries. And now, as a special limited time offer for our listeners, get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight frame when you go to skylightframe.com/Flusterclux. That's skylightframe.com/Flusterclux. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/Flusterclux.
Don't let the stress of the holiday season show up on your skin. Keep your complexion hydrated, youthful, and clear with Oak Essentials. Oak Essentials skincare is cruelty-free, non-GMO, and organic whenever possible. Plus, everything is free from silicones, colorants, sulfates, and a host of other nasties.
You can't go wrong with the body routine. It's Oak Essentials Complete Everything Shower Kit. It includes the Awaken Body Wash, a Perfecting Body Scrub, the Dew Body Oil, Luminous Body Lotion, and Moisture Rich Body Balm. I've been using that Moisture Rich Body Balm on my skin. I put it on before I go out for a walk in this cold weather. I feel like it's just taking care of my skin and protecting my face.
This holiday season, treat yourself and your loved ones to spa-quality skincare essentials that deliver a moisture-rich glow. Our listeners will get 15% off their first order when you use code Flusterclux15 at checkout.
That's 15% off your first order at OAKESSENTIALS.com, promo code Flusterclux15. Get your best radiant skin this season with Oak Essentials. This message is sponsored by Greenlight. Now is the perfect time to give your kids money skills that will last well beyond the holidays, and that's where Greenlight comes in. Greenlight is a debit card and a money app. It's made for families. Parents can send money to their kids and keep an eye on their kids' spending and saving, while giving kids and teens the opportunity to build confidence with money and lifelong financial literacy skills. It's got games that teach money skills in a fun, accessible way. The Greenlight app also includes a chores feature where you can set up a one-time or recurring chores customized to your family's needs. You can reward kids with allowance for a job well done. This is a great time to get started with Greenlight because it can help your kids get set up as the new year starts. And managing money, understanding the way that it works out there, it's really good to start in your home. Millions of parents and kids are learning about money on Greenlight. It's easy, convenient. It's a fun way for parents to raise financially smart kids and help families navigate life together. So sign up for Greenlight today at greenlight.com/fluster. That's greenlight.com/fluster to try Greenlight today. greenlight.com/fluster. Okay, we're back. I think Rob and I also told this story maybe in the first season of that woman who had 5 little kids. And I was getting to be friends with her when I first moved where I live in New Hampshire. And I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. And everybody talked about how her house was always perfect. And everybody was in amazement that with 5 little kids, that she could keep her house looking so neat and tidy and picked up and clean. And it was making me feel horrible about myself because one of my kids had Eucerin cream all over his head. So I asked her how she did it. I asked her what her secret was. And I wanted her to tell me the truth. We were talking on the phone. And she said, and I quote, "I'm a complete bitch about my kids making messes. I follow them around the house. I don't let them take anything out unless they've put things away." She said, "My anxiety about messes is so clear that they live in fear of making messes. I wouldn't ever let them finger paint. If we are going to do something like bake or make Play-Doh, there's a huge amount of tension because as soon as things start to get messy, I step in." I mean, she was really, really honest with me. I don't know what permission I gave her to be so honest with me. It made me feel a lot better about myself because I was really thinking, how do you do this? The cost of keeping things clean when you have little kids, it can be pretty significant. And this is where we really have to look at our ability to tolerate what kids developmentally do. It is not wrong. It is not unnecessary. It is not even considered a mess that needs to be immediately addressed if you've got a toddler who's throwing food. It is a game that they play and they derive great pleasure from it. What it also reminds me of is when people freak out when little kids swear and they think like, that's, oh my gosh, she's being naughty and she's swearing. They're doing it because they're mimicking us And because they like the reaction that they get, and they're also playing around with sounds and words. And if you say the F word, boy, does that get a response. So this is all within the realm of normal, him throwing food, him being so uncomfortable with messes and needing to wash his hands all the time. I'm going to say is not, I wouldn't put that in the category of normal. I wouldn't say he has OCD, but I would say you need to pay attention to turning that pattern around. That's what I would say.
I think all of us, when I realized that anxiety manifested in so many different ways beyond worry, right? I think that's one of the nice mantras or things that we can reflect on ourselves. Do I like it this way or do I need it this way? And when we feel that need, I need it this way, what we're presenting is an intolerance of that discomfort. And that content, you talk about content and pattern and process, but like everyone might have something a little different where they really need something a certain way. But we should aim to not need anything a certain way. We should aim to prefer things a certain way, but to be comfortable when it's not.
And that's the whole thing between flexibility and rigidity.
Yes.
And when I talk about flexibility, I'm not talking about chaos. I'm not talking about getting rid of all the expectations and all the rules and just let everything go to hell in a handbasket. What I'm saying is we prefer things a certain way. And then when they don't happen that way,
we're still okay.
We're still okay. We may not like it, but we're still okay. And when we look at the rigidity of anxious families, I love the way that you're using these words of prefer versus need, because that's what I see.
Right. If you need something a certain way, you're interpreting it as an emergency.
That's right. Because it's a need. I mean, think if there is an emergency, like if you have type 1 diabetes, I need to make sure that I check my blood sugar. We need to make sure. Or if your child has a life-threatening peanut allergy, we need to make sure that there are no peanuts at the birthday party, right? That's an important thing. And when we're talking about little kids, and also remember, we did that episode just not too long ago about ritual and tradition and how little kids like to do things a certain way and how they like the repetition. So an example would be if you're reading a favorite book with your child and you skip a page. We've all done that, right? You skip a page because you're tired and they're like, no, you have to read that page. That is them enjoying the predictability and the ritual of it. That's okay. It's when we're consequencing, when we're punishing, when it's our need to do something in a certain way. And we are saying to our kids, this is my need and we have to do it this way. Or when your child is saying, this is my need and we have to do it this way, that's where you want to look to inject flexibility. It could be all sorts of ways. And I've said this over and over and over again. Change up the seats at the dinner table. Change up where people sit in the car. Surprise kids, have a little novelty, have a little fun. Allow your kids to see the value of flexibility and your ability to manage flexibility. So important with kids from toddlerhood on up, for sure.
We'll take a break.
Lumen's the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs. And it gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workouts, sleep, even stress management.
All you have to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. And then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on your measurements. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals. You know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. And Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health game.
Yeah, your metabolism is at the center of everything your body does. Optimal metabolic health translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, and better sleep.
This helps you track your cycle, the onset of menopause, adjust your recommendations to keep your metabolism healthy through all these hormonal shifts that we go through as women.
It'll help you keep up your energy and stave off those cravings. If you want to stay on track with your health this holiday
holiday season, go to lumen.me/fluster to get 15% off your Lumen. That's LUMEN.me/fluster for 15% off your purchase.
Lumen makes a great gift, too. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode.
Do you struggle to find the perfect gift during the holidays?
Yes, I do. Are you buying for someone who has everything, or it just seems like they do? I mean, some people are just harder to buy for than others. And you feel like maybe you're wasting your money on useless clutter and things that nobody really wants.
We've got the perfect gift for you. Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. Upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds.
It's just such a great way to keep in touch. You can upload things that are very meaningful and emotional, but you can also just upload things that are fun.
You can preload it with memories without opening the box. You can surprise them with old sentimental photos as soon as it's plugged in, or not so sentimental and a little bit on the silly side.
Here is a gift that allows you to stay connected. We're all about staying connected. We are confident that you'll love Skylight. Skylight offers free 120-day returns.
Over 1 million happy customers with thousands of 5-star reviews, and it's available in over 30 countries.
And now, as a special limited time offer for our listeners, get $20 off your purchase of Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/Flusterclux.
That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/Flusterclux. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/Flusterclux.
This show is sponsored by Liquid IV. The holidays are upon us, and they are a marathon, not a sprint. It's really easy to forget to take care of yourself in the middle of all this rushing around. I don't like drinking plain water, but I am not exaggerating when I say that I am probably drinking 4 times as much as I would if I were just drinking plain water alone. It's powered by Liquid IV Hydroscience, which means that you've got an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. There are 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink. You've got 8 essential vitamins and nutrients. The flavors are so good. I am a huge fan of the lemon lime sugar-free version. I love it. They've got other flavors: pina colada, white peach, green grape. Tear, pour, live more. 1 stick plus 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. It is always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. Stay hydrated through the holidays with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code FLUSTER at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code FLUSTER at liquidiv.com. Okay, so now back to the show.
Hey, Lynn, so I have another listener question that I think is so timely because we did an episode a few weeks ago called How to Use This Podcast, because one of the things that you and I often find out is that listeners will write in and they'll say, okay, I think I get this principle, but how do I apply this to my situation? Because you didn't give advice on my specific situation. You taught me how to ride a red bike, but I need to know how to ride a green bike. And it's like, okay, well, so here's another perfect example of this. So let's see, because I have a feeling the difficulty that our listener has here is shared by many.
Mm-hmm.
So she wrote, I totally get the red bike, green bike analogy, but I'm having such a hard time applying these principles. My daughter had incontinence issues for years due to chronic constipation. I had to aggressively treat the chronic constipation in order to resolve the incontinence. The incontinence is long gone, but the constipation is still somewhat of an issue. My daughter isn't bothered by irregular bowel patterns, so it's me. I'm the one anxious about it. I think because of the years I had to monitor it daily. Do you have any tips or how to let go of an anxious thought pattern that has been a daily habit for years? I used to be anxious about getting sick, but that was really only triggered if I was around someone that was sick. This health worry is harder to manage because I'm expecting something to happen daily, and when it doesn't, I get anxious.
Yeah, so there we have a rigidity problem. there we have the same thing of, I have this expectation of how it's supposed to go. For one, kudos to this mom, because if she was able to deal with this chronic constipation problem, that means she put in the work, because we've talked about this in the past too. If you are interested in learning more about constipation and encopresis and that kind of stuff, we did that great episode with my colleague Mindy, which we can put in the show notes.
Known as the poop lady.
Yeah, the poop lady. Yeah, she's a social worker like me, and she's, the poop lady. So that's a really helpful episode to listen to. So the fact that this mom was able to deal with this and that she did the consistent thing that needs to happen in order to get over this hump, fabulous. That's amazing. So now what's left is the mom's rigidity about how she needs it to happen. So this is such a good example of, Robin, what you were talking about is what I prefer versus what I need. So if this daughter is not constipated, if this daughter is pooping and the mom says, I need her to poop every day, in order for me to feel okay, I need it to happen the way that I want it to happen. It has to meet my expectations. What the mom is asking is, what do I do with this anxious thought when it pops up? And here's the answer, everybody. Nothing. You are recognizing it as an anxious thought. You're recognizing it as a pattern. And the trap that people get into is that they think they have to do something to get rid of the anxious thought. Oftentimes, the way they get rid of the anxious thought, particularly if it's in this rigid category, is that they apply the rigid principles. So I get really anxious when I think about my house being messy. And then if I clean my house, then I feel better. Or I get really anxious if I think about maybe throwing up, like she used to have that thought of, I'm going to be sick. And so I get rid of that anxious thought by doing my safety behaviors. I take my temperature, or I take my Tums, or whatever.
Right. And she's really anxious about being around other sick people or other people becoming sick too.
Right. Which is very common. So the thought pops up regardless of what the thought is about. So it used to be about, oh, what if I get sick? Now it's, oh, what if my daughter gets constipated again? Or what if she's not pooping the way I need her to poop that makes me feel relieved? You've got practice with this, Mom. You've been able to manage, it sounds like, the other thought. And also, just everybody, this is a good example of how it just jumps from thing to thing. She's like, oh, I'm not worried about getting sick anymore. Now I worry about whether my daughter is going to poop every day. That's very common. When the thought pops up, when you have the thought of, I need my daughter to poop every day for me to feel comfortable, I just want you to say to yourself, oh, there's that thought. And again, that anxious thought's job is to grab your attention, to make you feel uncomfortable, to make you feel uncertain, promote it to an urgent or emergent situation, and then have you think about it, worry about it, maybe try and do something about it. This is the same thing of your toddler throws food. It's okay for your toddler to be messy. To teach your toddler that it's okay to feel uncomfortable, to have messy things on your hands. This mom, it's the same thing. It is okay if your anxious thought shows up. It really is. The main thing that I teach, if you came to a clinical training with me, you would see over and over and over again. The goal is to change your relationship to the worried thought when it pops up. Not to get rid of the worried thought, not even to change the worried thought. I don't like this thing where I have a worried thought and I'm going to change it to a happier thought. Oh, my daughter's not pooping every day. Oh, let's change it to my daughter poops better than she used to. We don't have to do that. I mean, you may say that to yourself, but really what you want to do is when the worry pops up, when you've identified it as a worry, you want to say, oh, there is that leftover old worried thought that I'm having. I've solved the problem. And so now that worried thought, that pattern that pops up is really not meaningful anymore. The way that worry holds us hostage is we make it meaningful. We act as if it's got important information. When your daughter really was constipated, when she really was having difficulty with this, it wasn't a worried thought that popped up. It was a problem that needed to be solved. And guess what? You took action. You did exactly what needed to be done. Great for you. You are capable of solving problems. This is just a leftover. This is worry showing up and saying, hey, remember when you solved that problem before? You know how you thought you sort of handled it? What if it comes back? Have you really solved it? Like, I'm here to insert doubt into your life. I'm here to insert uncertainty into your life. When the worry thought pops up, when the pattern pops up, you turn to it and you say, I know what this is about. I hear ya. I'm a problem solver. I'm actually solving the problem that's in front of me, and I don't need you promoting things to an emergency. That's the red bike, green bike.
If we were to break this down using the principles that you talk about in your book, The Anxiety Audit, which I think every listener should read. So there are two sort of patterns here that are ways that the anxiety is showing up, even though they're all related. That's the thing about anxiety. It's a big umbrella. So the first pattern is there's a rigidity that you mentioned because she needs her daughter to keep pooping every day. And then there's just the negative repetitive thinking pattern or the catastrophic. What if someone's getting sick around me? So there are all these different patterns of illness and body and health that are popping up. So if she were an advanced practitioner of the skills that you implement, she would have the ability to recognize there is the worry popping up. I've externalized my worry. I've given it a name, and it's Nurse Becky. And even though this won't always be health related, that's the thing you have to understand too. But right now, Nurse Becky is showing up, and Nurse Becky's telling me to worry about all of these different pieces of content. And I'm just going to roll my eyes at Nurse Becky and know that she is going to show up every effing time. And I'm not going to react and elevate it into an emergency, even though that's what my anxiety named Nurse Becky wants me to do. So that's the goal. I just think it's important to explain to people that is the goal. The goal is not to not recognize like, oh my gosh, that kid just sneezed around me. And now we're about to host family and we're all going to be sick. Those thoughts will keep happening. You just acknowledge there's that pattern again. There's Nurse Becky showing up again. And then you move on with your day.
Right. Exactly. What role are you going to give Nurse Becky? Is Nurse Becky your life coach? Is Nurse Becky your parenting coach? Is Nurse Becky who you're going to turn to for advice? Or is Nurse Becky your annoying mother-in-law or your annoying, Budinsky neighbor?
Who sucks joy out of your life. Because anxiety sucks joy out of your life.
That's right. And if Nurse Becky was coming over every day and saying, Robin, has your daughter pooped today? Because, you did a good job of overcoming that problem, but it could come back. So you really need to pay attention. She hasn't pooped in that regular, consistent way that makes me feel better. So I think you need to really be worried about this. Make Nurse Becky annoying, intrusive, a joy suck. That's exactly right. Be a little playful with it.
Right. If she were a person and she rang your doorbell, you'd be like, I'm not getting it today. And that's exactly what you want, is that your anxiety is ringing the doorbell in your brain. And you're like, roll your eyes at it, not today. Because when you can roll your eyes at it, you've stripped away some of this cult leader's power. And you call anxiety a cult leader.
That's right. And say Nurse Becky comes over and rings your doorbell. And you're like, oh my God, I have got to figure out a way to stop Nurse Becky from coming over and ringing the doorbell. Let her ring the doorbell. Just let her ring the doorbell. And don't get so caught up in what Nurse Becky is saying. That's the skill. Again, how you relate to Nurse Becky is how you break the pattern. So if you're in the pattern, and Nurse Becky shows up and says, did your kid poop today? And you turn to Nurse Becky and say, oh my God, I hope it doesn't happen. Oh my God, that was so difficult. Blah, 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 blah. Versus, oh, hi, Nurse Becky.
Can we date ourselves for a second?
Yeah, sure. We always date ourselves.
I know. Yeah, because we're not spring chickens
There's dating
anymore.
yourself. I know. That's funny. We say date yourself. I'm going to date myself. That has other implications as well.
That's true.
I'm going to send myself flowers. What was the Miley Cyrus song? I'm going to hold my own hand.
Yep, that's true. Yeah.
But anyway, we're talking about the other. Yeah, go ahead.
Mrs. Kravitz on Bewitched.
Oh, you know what? That's so funny you should say that, because my husband and I were just talking about Mrs. Kravitz. We were just talking about Mrs. Kravitz as that intrusive, nosy, can't keep her nose out of your business.
Wants everything a certain way.
Yep. Has to come over, has to put her input in. Mrs. Kravitz. What was her first name? Gladys Kravitz.
Yeah, that's what I would have guessed. Gladys Kravitz. Yeah, no, we all have a Gladys Kravitz.
We do.
Don't answer the door.
Yeah, don't answer the door.
Don't answer the door.
Yeah, and don't be surprised that Gladys acts like Gladys. That's the other thing, is when your worry actually acts like worry, don't be like, oh, why am I thinking this way? This is terrible. Oh, no, I shouldn't be thinking this way. Don't beat yourself up about it. Just be like, yeah, we all have a worry part. And you know what? Worry's going to worry. That's what it does. Just like Mrs. Kravitz is going to Mrs. Kravitz. So recognizing the pattern and recognizing the relationship, that's the key.
Yeah. So for all those listeners right now, what is Mrs. Kravitz ringing the doorbell wanting to tell you? Because one listener has it around constipation issues and health. The next mom might have it about homework. The list is endless.
And our kids will come up with different things. I mean, think of all the content that we've talked about. That episode a few months ago where the daughter discovered her parents were having sex and Robin was like, oh my God, I've never heard of that before. And I'm like, yeah. No, that's content. I've heard that before. The content doesn't matter.
The mom should play that daughter our Cindy Pierce episodes on sex and porn.
Yeah, that's a lot of information. You could have a Mrs. Kravitz about your kids' sexual life. You could have a Mrs. Kravitz about what your children are seeing, what they're doing, what they're exposed to. The goal is to recognize, is this a signal that I need to pay attention to? If your kid has peanut allergies and your worry says, oh my gosh, I don't know if there's going to be peanuts at the party, pay attention to that. But if your worry is always there, making you feel as if it's an emergency when it's not, when it's an overestimation of the problem, an underestimation of your resources to handle it. That's the definition of anxiety by David Barlow. I love that definition. This is what worry does. And sort of my last little reminder, everybody, when your worry is showing up and you are responding to it, your kids notice, they see it, you are modeling it. And as my husband said the other day, we were talking about something, the kids are just little mimics. They're little mimics. And that's wonderful because it means that you have influence. It means that you can do things. Doesn't mean you need to be perfect. I know there's a lot of parenting stuff out there that's like, if you say this word, if you say this, you say that. It's not one time. We're looking at long-term patterns. You're going to screw up. You're going to make a mistake. That's fine. Your kid is going to cover his brother in Eucerin cream and you might freak out a little bit. And that's fine. Yeah. And by the way, it'll take you like 3 weeks to get it out.
I didn't have a Eucerin cream, but glitter on the scalp, man.
Oh, we never had the glitter thing.
Yeah, because you had boys. You put a little glitter in a little girl's scalp, it will be there until she gets a driver's license.
But that's okay. Isn't that okay to have to walk around with a little glitter? Isn't that all right?
It's like a very Taylor Swift kind of thing.
It does sound she should write a song, A Little Glitter in My Scalp.
I think glitter in my hair might be a better lyric.
Is it dandruff or just glitter? You decide. Thanks for listening. And if you found this podcast helpful, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It helps other people find this information.
And if you'd like to dig deeper on any of these topics, we have specialized playlists on our Spotify profile, and the link is in the show notes. Topics like teens, depression, and OCD. Bye, Lynn.
Bye, Robin.
Hi there, I'm Andrea Owen, self-help author with 19 translations of my books, global keynote speaker, and life coach. My podcast, Make Some Noise, has been serving up self-help in a simple-to-digest way for the last decade. The topics brought in each episode are practical and easy to implement around topics such as working through fears that keep you stuck, different modalities of therapy, managing your negative self-talk, and more. We bring you guest experts, solo episodes, and I even coach listeners on the air around relatable struggles. I also do my best to weave my sense of humor into some heavy topics because, let's face it, life can be pretty hard, and it's so much better when we can have some fun while walking through our challenges. Whether you're seasoned in personal development or just starting out, Make Some Noise podcast will help you become the best version of yourself, the person you're proud of when you look in the mirror and show up in your life. Simply search Make Some Noise with Andrea Owen wherever you listen to your podcasts.